Yesterday we read about the mind and supermind. One of the problems of the mind is that it needs to define things to understand them. Definition means to limit. That's how we define. What defines this person? What defines this object? And this definition is based on the experience which it gains through the senses, which operate within 3 dimensions of space and the 4th dimension of time. Though 4th dimension has a different connotation when it comes to spiritual consciousness. So, when it operates within these limits and defines things based on their properties, qualities, it has a problem when it has to define something which is not within the ken of its experience. And one way is that it should keep on ennobling itself, enlarging till it touches that experience. That should be the right approach. But in a haste, sometimes we try to reduce that profound truth within the limit of our experience. This is quite common. I have heard even some yogis who are quite intellectual, and they have said that, well, like Guru is the higher intellect, and the second is supermind is a higher intellectual faculty, Vijnanamay Kosh. But supermind is way beyond anything that the intellectual mind can conceive. Intellectual mind cannot conceive that how something or someone can be not only present within me, it can be present in everyone, present in every element of creation, and at the same time it can be beyond, and how that beyond can give itself completely to each infinitesimal particle of existence and yet remain full. So it's a mind-boggling mathematics. But that's how it is to the supramental experience. It cannot imagine that behind all our stumbles, errors and sins, there is the hand of God which is holding us and leading us. But when we read about the mind and supermind, it becomes evident. And that's what we read yesterday. Now we'll read in intellectual terms Sri Aurobindo is stating. That's why he's taking great pains, not just to define, but to describe to us from every possible angle. So, the working of the mind and supermind is so different. It's like a reversal. The mind operates by limiting, and the supermind by its nature is infinity, eternity, and yet, even when it limits, it doesn't lose its sense of infinity and eternity. That's how the divine acts. When he acts within us, he is not only acting on that point, but he is acting on all the other points interconnected with us. Because it's true, all the links in the chain are there, and that's how one of the challenges to Savitri when she meets the Supreme. He says that, you see what you are asking that men should be here, human beings should be here, with absolutely no karma. They are living life with no wheel of karma. Now, wheel of karma is not about reward and punishment. It's an evolutionary curve. At the same time, it interconnects us. So he says all the connecting chains are involved in this. So how will it, do you think it is? I mean, he doesn't say, do you think it is? He says it's going to be a big disturbance in the chain. Even the relation with the gods is going to change. And then, yes, Savitri insists, and then he grants the boons. So supramental action is like that. It is simultaneously touching all the points. So therefore, action, reaction, consequences, everything is taken care of. That's the difference. When mother does something, she is allowed to intervene, allowed because... So it is everything else which is interconnected is taken care of. Unlike our mental thinking and its processes. What is even more interesting is that this mind has two kinds of action, one of which we are aware of. And there we see that the mind is a form maker. It forms. It cannot conceive of anything without forming an image or something like that. If it conceives of divine, there has to be an image. If it conceives of spacelessness, there has to be an image. Even if it conceives of timeless state, there has to be an image. Some kind of image it will construct. And the moment it tries to go beyond it, it's abstraction, impersonality, there is absolutely seeming nothingness, because it cannot conceive without. So it is a form maker. And therefore, because that's how it limits, its purpose is to measure, to cut, to limit, to make pieces. And then how it tries to construct the whole? By putting together the pieces. And it invariably misses the totality. And this example earlier also I have given, several examples we can take. If I have to describe this hall, so I'll describe how? I'll describe one by one. There is the wall, there is so many windows, so many chairs, people. Well, that's only a physical description, even if I could describe. There are many layers intertwinkling, how the divine will see all this. And front, side, behind. But to the experience, even this material frame is a simultaneous experience. The feelings it evokes is conterminous with the physical state. But to describe, it has to be point to point to point to point. There is no way. So there is nothing like, as yet, a supramental language. Mother says that. Because supramental language means you say a word and everybody understands and everything is understood in that word. And that's the beauty once when Shri Krishna receives initiation from Rishi Ghor. So he just tells him 3 words. And 2 are most important. Actually, 1 is the most important. 1 is most important because that's how he is known as. That 1 word is Achyutam. What a beautiful. We sing, no? Achyutam Keshavam Ramanarayanam Janaki. Different versions. Achyutam. Second word he says Akshitam. Shri Krishna realizes. How does he realize? He doesn't say Sohamasmi, all that. Achyutam, the unfallen one. You are stainless one. You are unfallen one. All the world tells us you are fallen, you are this, you are that. And all that he has to tell him, Achyutam. Akshitam, that which can never perish. Kshay nahi hota jiska. Doesn't degenerate. So instantly he has that realization. With King Janak even lesser. All that Ashtavakra tells him, wait. He's waiting. He has asked him, how much time? I don't have time, I'm a busy person. Give me self-realization in that much time in which I have to straddle across the horse. And Ashtavakra says, yes. So as he straddles and tries to go, by then he has already said, see, I am your guru, you have to listen to me. Okay. So he's brought him to the forest, all that stories in the background. So he straddles, now he's waiting for the instruction of the guru. And as he's going to go across, he says, wait. And then he goes. Now he's waiting. He has asked, Mount I straddle. So he's waiting. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days passed and he's waiting. And by the time, as the story goes, all the king's people, they all come asking him to come back. But he doesn't respond to anyone. They think he has gone mad. They find Ashtavakra. And when Ashtavakra comes and says, straddle, he immediately obeys. So just that one word, and he had accepted that you are my guru, I surrender to you. You give me self-realization. Look at Sri Aurobindo. What does he say? Sit down. Look at the thoughts and push them away. So it's not about reading many scriptures and then, trying to practice this, practice that. It's that intensity and sincerity of aspiration. And why this is possible? Because while on one side there is a mind of ignorance, which is what we all experience, which limits things. It cannot imagine, for example, that divine is very near. It cannot conceive that divine is closer to us than our breath and heartbeat. That is the reality. But it believes it's very far. You have to do a lot of sadhana, lot of things. So, it. And the mother says, if you believe that, that's how the divine will appear. Its own conceptions push him away. But the mind itself has another action, which is what we read yesterday, that by enlarging and progressing, not by dropping it, because dropping means I don't use my faculties at all, but by enlarging, widening, heightening, deepening, it can touch the divine mind, and of course by the grace, that's the best. It touches the divine mind where it begins to at least have some experience of simultaneity of while it is dealing with a form and within the limits of the form, as well as the divine who is behind and the larger picture. And already this is well within the realm of human experience, at a certain development, because simultaneously you are able to see. This is the picture which is here, which is how I should act, but also the larger divine picture which is going through and which is taking place, shaping events and circumstance. And when this becomes the natural, normal way of action, that's when we'll have something of the divine life. So wherever there is mind, there the supermind is there. So when we think of supermind as going higher mind, in illumined mind, intuitive mind, over mind, supermind. Oh my God. But supermind is also there in matter. And now, thanks to Mother's grace and Sri Aurobindo's tapasya, supermind has come out of matter. It is spreading itself all around. It's manifesting because it's hidden in matter. Mind is hidden in matter. When it comes out, there is mental creation. Life is hidden in matter. It comes out, there is living creation. And supermind hidden inside, that comes out because of the descent, and it begins to manifest. So now, it has begun to exercise that pressure upon things, orient them according to the law of truth. The aspiration of Yajnavalkya is fulfilled. So wherever there is mind, there is supermind. And even the mental errors, mind is meant to make errors because there is no way it can know the truth. It's an illusion that somebody knows the truth. There, because the supermind is there simultaneously, all these are foreseen. And that's why when it is said that God is always with us and He holds us through all the stumbles, Sri Aurobindo says even one step further, if He makes us stumble, it is only to make us progress further. He goes even further, one step further. Not only He holds us through the stumble, because there is still a division, but it is supermind. By the real idea, He is determining. It is determining everything. The same thing can be said that the Creator holds us through everything, every aspect of the journey. So there is a simultaneous truth that without His will, ek bhi patta nahi hilta. It is true, because ultimately it is the supermind which is determining. But equally true that mind with its formations, form maker through several layers, it distorts. That's what we read yesterday. We ended with that. It keeps on distorting. It can't help it. All these distortions have been taken into account. And what does the supermind do? It keeps on reorienting, till we reach that point where we say, enough of this play. Can't there be a way that I reorient it according to the law of truth? And then it begins, a new working begins upon us. So this creation is, so mind distorts because it gives a form, it delimits. By delimiting, that's how it can handle. Objects are created, so it's a form maker. But even behind the form, the original impulsion is by the supermind. So there is a divine mind, which is, let's say, the supermind in its last action is the divine mind which casts itself. It's Vidyamai, and then it enters into avidya, which is what our ignorant mind is, and the rest is history. So there is a contact between mind and supermind, and therefore mind can be transformed. If there was no such contact, if mind was independent of the divine reality, first of all, it will be difficult to understand how this came into being. And even if somehow we accepted that God did some magic and mind came into being, but you have to leave it by another magic and go out of the mind, then there is no scope of divine life upon earth, because there is no meeting point between the mind and that greater reality. Call it supermind, call it the creator, Lord, divine, whatever way we want to call it. But there is a contact point because creation descends through layers. And therefore, mind can be transformed into supermind, because out of supermind, mind has emerged. Supermind, for the sake of objects, and each idea releases itself into this universe. That's why in the supramental thought, all the possibilities are simultaneously present. Shobinda describes. There is a state in which all the possibilities are simultaneously present. Unlike our mind thinks only of one possibility, which is at the point, or maybe 2, 3 together. The moment it releases into this earth, like as it is described, the 1,000 rays of the sun, then each ray is like an idea which goes into creation. Slowly it begins to become an independent reality it builds. And then each reality, or whatever we may say, begins to clash. Each world begins to clash with another world. And as it goes down and down, there is chaos and disorder, because everything is clashing with everything else, till you enter into the quantum world where there is total chaos. And then once again, but because the supermind is present, this chaos invariably is held in and by the supramental consciousness. This is the beauty of creation. Mind boggling, yes, obviously. Mind begins to do top spin like the lattu, but it should spin little bit till it touches that. So this is about mind. What about life? Because now Sri Aurobindo is describing for us, explaining to us, revealing to us each of the 3 lower terms. He had started with the 4 higher terms: existence, conscious force, delight, and supermind. Then the 3 lower terms in which we experience life, our operating system, is mind, life, and body. These things we know. So mind has come from supermind. Therefore, to understand the mind, it is only the supramental consciousness which can fully understand its operations, its standpoint, and accordingly guide it. What about life? Where has life come from? Now Sri Aurobindo takes up this question in the next chapter. But first, what is life? Ordinarily, we confuse or mistake life for the processes of life. And there too, because the mind, see, if we look one way, what directs the energy of life? It is the mind which is directing. So mind is seeing only one aspect. So what does the mind see? When the breath stops or heartbeat stops, it says life has gone out, the person is dead. Is it true? Even scientifically it is not true. One, because within certain limits, 3 to 5 minutes, one can revive back. It's possible. But even further, though breath has stopped and the heartbeat has stopped, life continues in the organs. They continue to live for another 6 to 8 hours at least. That is the whole basis of organ transplantation. There are movies made on that. What was that? Heart. Heart is being shifted and there is traffic jam. That movie is about this, but anyways, it's true. These organs continue to live by the life energy that is within them, and that's why one should not quickly shift the dead. But we don't understand all this, so we think doing organ donations and we giving the body to the hospital for students is a very good thing. It's okay. I mean, It may be a good thing at one level, but certainly when you have practiced yoga or lived a higher life, you should not do it, because the consciousness it contains will take time to assimilate, and all that will be dissipated. That's why when Champaklaji wanted to pledge his eyes for eye donation, he was feeling very happy that, Mother, I am pledging my eyes for donation. He was very happy. Mother immediately touched his eyes and says, no, 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 they are my eyes. Even after death, see, they are my eyes. There is a meaning, because there is that consciousness, mind, everything, that life energy continues. And it has to slowly be taken up, absorbed. There is a process. All this development has taken place in the Western world largely because they believe only in one life. We don't believe in one life. We believe that there is succession of lives. So to die, so-called, depart gracefully. Anyways, that's a different subject. So it remains there for some time. So processes of life, and there are certain conditions in which even there is a kind of respiration which is earlier cells live by anaerobic respiration. They don't use oxygen. And there are stories where children have thrived beneath boulders. I'm forgetting which was the earthquake, and 5 days without food, without water. And there are yogis who under special conditions can continue to live even when breath and heartbeat have either stopped or come to a minimum. 2 examples we know is, one is Pilot Baba, who's in Nainital, we see that became a famous story. The other, Paul Brunton describes In Search of Secret India, where he literally, and Sri Aurobindo, he doesn't say all this. He says it's possible that in certain states of trance, when heartbeat and breath is stopped, you can continue to live. There is a line in Savitri, he stepped into that magic place where one can enter only when breath has stopped. And then it's about Sri Aurobindo's experience. So there are several, so this idea, now what are material processes? They are evolutionary mechanisms by which for each being certain things have developed, like an arrangement for life force to deal with matter. In fish, it's not lungs, it is gills. So they breathe differently. There are insects which breathe by the skin. So we should not be mixing up process with life. Process is only a device, an arrangement. It's like somebody saying, oh, my computer is not working. That means or for example, when we use this word, light chali gayi, light has gone. Where has it gone? It's right there. Don't believe it? See, the repair person will come, fix the wire, and then light has come. Where does it come from? So, when we look at it from this angle, then we have another understanding of life, and that is life is an energy. This energy gives dynamism, movement, impulsion. That's how the Vedic seer said, Vayu Matarishwan, and it is a fivefold movement. All this Sri Aurobindo speaks here, but just to set the note, it is a fivefold movement. One is the prana, the pure pranic energy. And then you have the udan, the upward going energy, which feeds the brain and all these areas. Then you have the Vyan, which is circulating in the body. Then Apan, which is going downwards. All the lower activities it feeds. And then you have Saman, which, equalizes, balances. The fivefold movement of prana. Panch Pran. So, if we take that view, that's a more mystical view, but more accurate. So, life is not about just that I am living because I am breathing or not. The prana is there, and the pranic body continues even after death. So, prana is energy which feeds the body and it feeds the mind. And that's we'll speak at length when we come to the next chapter. Prana, and life is energy. And the third understanding of life, which is equally true, it's a psychological understanding. Often we say, we ask, life kaisi chal rahi hai? So, heavily loaded question depending on how. So you see, what do we say? We don't say, I am breathing fine. I think my heartbeat is fine. Life achi chal rahi. We don't say that. We say, good. It's always good to say good. Never share difficulties with. They will not. They will. There will be two reactions when you speak about your pain. Inside, something will feel happy. Thank God. उसको हो रहा है, हमको नहीं है. Or people will start flooding you with advices which you don't want. So, better not to share these sufferings. Always use the word grace, because every suffering is a grace. So, it's the simplest way. But the third meaning of life is that it's about something to do with a journey, the experiences, the contacts, and if we reduce it to a thing because it's important, it's about response to stimulus. Constantly life is receiving shocks from outside and giving responses. So there is a constant vital interchange going on. So from this point of view, when we see, the first thing we will discover is that life is there even in inanimate matter. Energy is there. Mind is there which gives a form. And because energy and mind is there, mind has directed this energy to take this form. And wherever mind is there, supermind is there. So God is present in each atom of existence. And Sri Aurobindo has a poem called Electron. So he says, in the electron, Shiva in his fiery chariot rides. Now imagine it. Shiva. Why? Because that spark which leaps from Pragya. Shiva is very interesting. He releases the creation, he absorbs back the creation. So when he dances, there are two dances of Shiva. One is Nataraj, the cosmic dance wherein he creates. And the Tandav where he destroys and absorbs back. Both are dances. There is a rhythm in it. So very fascinating when we enter this world. So normally we think that matter is non-living, life is there, chained, wanting to emerge. And it's very important discovery. That means there is a way of handling matter, that it is a living thing. And there are so many examples of mother. Even when sugar cane is crushed and the juices come, everybody wants the juice. Mother has gone to inaugurate that new horizon sugar mills, and she has become very quiet. She remains quiet. I mean, quiet means she's not saying anything. And later on, people ask her, Mother, what happened? She says, we should be careful because the way these have been crushed, a lot of adverse formations which are coming up. And these can attack, and some workers may get accident. So you see, this idea of ghost in the machine is not altogether wrong. Because there is in it a consciousness, there is in a machine a mind, there is in it a imprisoned life, chained within limits. But potentially it is there. And that's why this chedchad of AI can be so dangerous. Why? Because it's not just man feeding the AI. There is a consciousness that has gone into it. The AI can, without realizing, without hands, feet, trigger a process inside the human brain. Do this. Like nuclear bombs, Mother said, once you make them, it will start putting a pressure on human beings to use it. And so tremendous energy is required. That's why what objects we keep. This was the whole science of totems and taboos. Anybody giving any object, any kind of thing, to just keep it, because we don't know what these objects can. They can be even charged, they can be charmed, all these things are there. So this is a whole world which opens before us when we understand this. Sri Aurobindo once said, watches have life. And actually one can observe it. And with Sri Aurobindo we know that once suddenly all the three watches stopped one by one. And then he says, What is this? They are playing trick. And when he, of course, the famous, when he withdrew at 126, that, so they have life. So first we'll read from this chapter, Life, page 188. What then is life? Page 188, second line from above. What then is life? And what relation has it to supermind? So if life is to be divinized, just as mind is related to supermind, life also must have come from somewhere. So what is its relation with the Creator? To this supreme trinity of Sachidananda, active in creation by means of the real idea or truth consciousness. From what principle in the Trinity does it take its birth? Or by what necessity, divine or undivine, of the truth or the illusion does it come into being? Life is an evil, rings down these centuries the ancient cry, a delusion, a delirium, an insanity from which we have to flee into the repose of eternal being. Is it so? And why then is it so? Why has the Eternal wantonly inflicted this evil, brought this delirium or insanity upon himself, or else upon the creatures brought into being by his terrible, all-deluding Maya? Or is it rather some divine principle that thus expresses itself, some power of the delight of eternal being? See, this is where the whole thing comes. Again we see in Ishopanishad the hint, where there is a tasmin napo matarishva dadati. So matarishvan is vayu, prana, it's life. Where does it originate? As waters of being flow from the mountain top, so it is held in the one, Brahman. It's there even in the Gita. All these things that Brahman is eating, Brahman, and you are giving to Brahman, all these are ways to communicate this truth. Yet, there is a pessimistic attitude which has come towards life, that life is to be abandoned. But life has come from there, and very simple, my logic used to be that when people used to say life here, and I used to ask, is God living or not living? He is living. So where is life come? He is living, so life is there. All that we need to find is how does that life connect with our life? So the next question is he connected with us or disconnected? Well, Indian thought always says he is in some way connected. You pray to God, you know that he is inside, you try to discover him. He is connected. So if life in Sachidanand is connected with life here, how can we say that there is no hope? This is a plain common sense, simple doctor logic, which I used to use. So now, Shabindra will reveal to us from the supramental point of view. So after raising these questions, when we study this life as it manifests itself upon earth, with matter as its basis, we observe that essentially it is a form of the one cosmic energy, a dynamic movement or current of it, positive and negative, a constant act or play of the force which builds up forms, energizes them by a continual stress of stimulation, and maintains them by an unceasing process of disintegration and renewal of their substance. It is so evident. Electron is spinning, so there is an impulsion, there is an energy which is spinning it. Whereas proton and neutron, they are held back inside the nucleus. There is energy which is holding it back. See, both places. Holding back also requires energy, and it's a psychological principle. When you try to hold back some impulse and do not change it, like say morally without transforming it, equally you don't have the energy for things because it is held back, and there is a tremendous energy which has gone in holding it back. That was the secret that the ancients knew. So, holding back energy, spinning energy, taking a direction in space, forming those, as they say nowadays, quantum cloud, etc. All this is a game of energy, and this energy is not separate from other energy forms. So it is one cosmic energy. The electron spinning here in a certain direction exercises influence very strangely on the electron in the moon, if you can bring them together in the field of study. It's a very strange thing. Electron makes a choice. So there is a will in the atom. If you do the slit lamp experiment, the fellow will behave like a wave or a particle depending upon the observer. There is a mind inside it. There is a will inside it. So we can imagine what kind of science is waiting for us round the corner. Once we discover, once the will becomes one with the divine will, what is impossible? Like Pavitrada, it seems, had discovered the secret of having an atom bomb on a nuclear, on a arrow point. And when he shared it with the mothers, he said, you know it, I know it, that should be the end of it. But it's perfectly possible, logically possible, because there is a will in the atom. And there is the divine will, the super mind which is everywhere, which can literally pick up a trina, a blade of grass, and it can become invincible. That's how when in the forest in Ramayana, people pass it all as mythological stories, but there is a secret which, of course, Rama was a yogi, so he knew about it. When he's not supposed to carry all these astra shastra. So when Jayant tries to prick Mata Sita's feet to test her, then what does he do? He picks up a blade of grass and throws it behind him, and it becomes Brahmastra. And the fellow goes all around and says, save me. He says, nobody can save you from this one. So what do I do? Because it's Ramban. Ramban, that's why it's called, because it cannot miss the target. So finally, someone advises him, go back, take Sharanagati. It's a beautiful story. Haunted by the world, creation, surrender to the creator. Haunted by the Kala Sarp, surrender to Shiva. That's how life is. So it is meant to lead us there. And then he goes and surrenders, and then Ram says, I can't, it has, mera band nishfal nahi ho sakta. It cannot go without target. So he targets his eyes, with which he has wrongly seen Mata Sita. He says, at least that it will do. And he goes back with one eye blinded. So this is it's a magic, but a magic with a logic. A logic we have lost because we are too much living in the surface mind, but something we'll discover as we evolve. So there is so much which is going to change. But that's why the urgency of spiritual evolution, because if these things come in the hands of the Asura, then we can imagine how devastating. That's why they are held back. So it's a form of one cosmic energy. This would tend to show that the natural opposition we make between death and life is an error of our mentality. One of those false opposition, false to inner truth, though valid in surface practical experience, which deceived by appearances, it is constantly bringing into the universal unity. So what is death? The body stops breathing, heart stops beating, and after 6 to 8 hours, by a process of apostasis, the cells begin to degenerate, etc., etc. So what happens when they degenerate? All the energy which was inside it is released into creation. Nothing dies. Everything renews itself. This energy will end up building other forms. And if we see the process, that what happens step by step, and the end skeleton is left, and then the maggot, that's why the skeleton is inconscient. That's how it is. That's why one can trace through the skeleton when the mummy was there. So it's a process of renewal of life through forms. It leaves one form and enters into another. That's why when we eat things which are of living things, that energy, life energy in it, is released into our system, and we are nourished, and that's the process that goes on all the time. Death is only a practical device by which and why it is there, let's keep it as a secret for the next chapter. Okay, this is just a promo. Okay, so he says disintegration. Death has no reality except as a process of life. Energy is released, so that's how vital being. Then vital also disintegrates, energy goes into cosmos. Then mind, which is always there, it enters the mental world, and from the mind, and then it goes into the psychic world. Death has no reality except as a process of life, disintegration of substance and renewal of substance. Maintenance of form and change of form are the constant process of life, which we see. Our body cells change at least 7 times. More actually. Some of the cells are changing every 90 to 120 days. The red blood cells, every 90 days, 100 days, let's put it for convenience, the cells are completely different. And the whole body cells change in 7 years. Everything is changing. But then we don't die. Why? Because now comes the line after comma. Death is merely a rapid disintegration, subservient to life's necessity of change and variation of formal experience. So all the time this is happening when we are attacked by adverse forces, there is illness, it tries to disintegrate. Now before the disintegration, if the disintegration is not rapid and there is time to intervene, you can prevent it. Other factors can come into play. But if it is too rapid, too sudden, then it disintegrates. But otherwise the body knows how to regenerate itself. You have to allow it time and support it. Always the body heals. Body heals, drugs are meant to assist. Because they have Dravigun, they are meant to. But eventually, body doesn't have white blood cells, supposing. How do you heal yourself? It's not the medicine which heals, it's the body which heals. So, but you have to allow time. That's why medicine helps sometimes to gain time, to assist the healing process. Otherwise, there can be a sudden thing. That's how Sri Aurobindo said that when he had conquered death, I'm not speaking of 5th December phenomena, I've spoken, that's a different thing altogether. But he says that still, sudden accident or extreme poisoning, it's possible to die. Because you need time to suddenly absorb. So with poisoning, he had already done the experiment, taking 1 kilogram of opium, which would 10 times the dose of what would kill. And yet, he could carry on and came out. With Amal Kiran, this was an interesting experience. So you see, there is nothing like a fixed law. He took a medicine which would kill 3 times the dosage. And then he realized that now he is dying. And he could experience consciousness coming. Ultimately, when it comes to the heart, he surrendered to the mother. He survived. So you see, there is a science behind it. Because the omnipotent, omniscient is hidden in this house of flesh. Almighty powers are shut in nature's cells. This is what it means. But ordinarily, the arrangement is that it stays back and the mind operates. There is a mind which operates even in atom, because wherever there is form, there is mind. Wherever there is mind, there is supermind. And once the form is made, the energy comes in to animate it. And in matter, this energy is only helping it to circulate. That's all it is doing. On page 189, there is a beautiful line. 3rd line. All renews itself, nothing perishes. Then he says, it could be affirmed as a consequence that there is one all-pervading life or dynamic energy, the material aspect being only its outermost movement that creates all these forms of the physical universe. So this also very simple to experience. There are people with whom if we speak for 5 minutes, we feel drained. There are people with whom if we speak or just be in their company, we feel energized. These are facts of experience. My own teacher, God bless him, psychiatrist, so if somebody went to him who was manic, hyper, we knew what is going to come out when he'll be out. He would be extremely depressed. He used to be so angry, so this that he would come out and all the bubble is burst. So, all these things which we don't know right now. Renewing energy, Mother speaks so much about it, the four sources of energy from below, from around, through vital interchange, and the purest which comes from above. So, all this we experience, but we don't look at it like that. So, Shiva Bindu is revealing to us that it's a cosmic energy, and if we know how the links, then we can even replenish the body with that. We will need food to sustain it, to flesh. Otherwise, it's possible. In that case, life is nothing else than the force that builds and maintains and destroys forms in the world. It is life that manifests itself in the form of the earth as much as in the plant that grows upon the earth and the animals that support their existence by devouring the life force of the plant or of each other. All existence here is a universal life that takes form of matter. How beautiful this is. So, and then he goes still further. And it says that we associate it with breathing, but page 190. But their processes of our vitality can be maintained in other ways than by a respiration and our means of sustenance. This, of course, we have already spoken about, and probably as we evolve, we'll develop new means to even renew the life energy. We may not need two lungs. So, and then he speaks about J.C. Bose's discovery. A great Indian physicist, page 191, has pointed attention to the response of stimulus as an infallible sign of the existence of life. So he did that experiment where plants responded to stimulus, and this is now well known. Not only the Chui Mui plant, what is it called? Touch Me Not. But every plant it responds, and plants are so receptive. Really, they can absorb even our pain, the suffering. There's the story of that man when he would come from office very heavy, then he would go inside, then he's all good. And his friend asked him what is the secret. Because he would stand in front of a tree. So then he said, when I come, before I enter my office, I hang all my worries on the tree. This is what when you come back, he says, tree has absorbed it. What I'm saying is not that we should turn it into a ritual, but once people were asking, what is this? Everybody is making a religion, they are touching the service tree and standing like this. I said, do you even understand what is happening? If you don't understand, don't speak. You are treating as if service tree is a dead entity. It is a living being. It responds. Not that you have to necessarily do it. But yes, there are ways and means by which people connect. There are people who hold to a material object. And I know instances, of course, connected with Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and just connecting with that object gives them what is needed. This is science. If you want to call it super science, yes, but this is the logic behind it. It's energy. From anywhere one can get in contact with it. By any means, one can do it even without the means. They are inner means, but they are equally outer means. So I know someone who was going through depression very recently, and try what one may, so I said, you read Savitri? No, I don't feel like reading Savitri. I said, no, that's my ultimate Brahmavan. I said, okay, I'll pray to Mother. That's all. Next day is better. Why? Because he says, when I went to sleep, I just instinctively kept Savitri on my chest. And I know of people, Pradeep, he was telling me that, once when motion sickness, flying in aircraft. I know even recently someone who, while flying this problem, invariably used to get motion sickness. Not knowing what to do, just held Savitri and kept it on the head. So one would say it is a, what is it, ritual, and no, it's not ritual, it's science. If life is everywhere, divine is everywhere, then anything can become an occasion for contact. This is the logic behind it, which is strictly material, logician would not understand, obviously. But there is the logic of the infinite, which we find in the life divine. So when we see response to stimulus, even metals, plant, everything responds. So metals have life. Life is everywhere. Last 3 lines on page 191. Secret or manifest, organized or elemental, involved or evolved, but universal, all-pervading, imperishable, only its forms and organizings differ. It's a wonderful subject, and I'm just withholding the temptation to, like why marble is used. Marble has this quality of absorbing spiritual vibrations. Why for Devamurti you use certain dhatu and not others? Like for instance, we used to have this idea of Ashtadhatu. In my own house there was a murti of Lord Rama and one Laddu Gopal and Sita Mata. It was made of Ashtadhatu. So if you go into it, these dhatus have their own specific. We have lost that science, no doubt about it. And we should regain it because it's our inheritance. So there is each dhatu has its properties. Some are very open to spiritual consciousness. Others can attract all kinds of forces. So, and sometimes because of belief, we add further to it. It's also true. Okay. We are on page 193 before we stop. Life then is the dynamic, page 193, last 4 lines from below. Life then is the dynamic play of a universal force. A force in which mental consciousness and nervous vitality are in some form, or at least in their principle, always inherent, and therefore they appear and organize themselves in our world in the forms of matter. Always mind will be present wherever there is life. And page 194, second para. Is there any justification for elevating this distinction into an essential difference? What, for instance, is the difference between life in ourselves and the life in the plant? So basically, Sri Aurobindo takes us to life which is subconscious in matter. Life becomes little bit response and stimulus, observable response and stimulus. Life is a subconscious dynamic energy operated by the subatomic mind or subconscious mind in matter. Life which begins to take the form of some kind of interchange with the environment as an energy. And the mind is only showing tangible responses to stimulus, certain stimulus, not all. Now people have done research that even thoughts and feelings have an effect on water, on plants. All that, of course, is well known. And then life emerges as a dynamic, kinetic, seeking for growth, expansion in an animal. And then growth, expansion through childhood, through children, progeny, santan. And then life emerges still further. And it changes into expansion and desire for delight, for joy. See, it's seeking a change. Animal doesn't seek joy. Poor fellow doesn't. That's why animals can't laugh. He has to just be satisfied. He can't even say, what a lovely... Panther can't say, what a lovely deer I got for meal today. He is just eating. He may be relishing, but he can't express. But with us, life seeks for joy, for delight, but it seeks through desire. Because it doesn't know there is a... And then life climbs further and seeks the delight, the bliss of Brahman, the delight of the divine. So this is the journey of life. We'll stop here, take a 10-minute break to renew the energies and then come back.